Hello, welcome to the presentation for courses. I am Ya-Qian Li. This is the introduction of members.
Hi, I'm Siro Zhong.
Hi, my name is Sherry Bu.
Hello, my name is Xiangyu Chen.
Hello, my name is Hongsen Zhu.
Hi, I'm Carrie Song.
Thanks for introducing yourself. Okay, let's start the presentation. The topic of this presentation is the influencing factors and the trend forecasting of gender pay gap. In real life, there may be problems of occupational sexism, such as the stereotyping of jobs, and the salaries of the same workers are different because of gender differences. Women in particular are more likely to emphasize with this. If you are interested in this topic, let me give you a framework for this presentation. Firstly, Siro Zhong will briefly introduce the purpose and the literature review on the gender pay gap for the presentation. Secondly, we have made sufficient preparations for the data of this presentation. In order to ensure the integrity of the data and its suitability to the time series model, we have integrated multiple data sets, which will be described by Sherry Bu. Then we will conduct exploratory analysis on data trends and influencing factors. And from that, the actual gender pay gap is decreasing year by year. Xianyu Chen will talk about the details. Continually, we will experiment with the data through time series models and the generalized linear model. In the first part, Hongsen Zhu will use time series model to study the annual trend of gender pay gap and record indicators every year, such as labor force participation rate and age level. In the last part, Carrie Song will choose 2 years to explore a generalized linear model of how demographic characteristics such as education, gender, and race affect the gender pay gap. Finally, I will conclude. Now, let's Siro Zhong do her part.
Firstly, let's concern about the reasons and purpose of studying the gender pay gap. The gender pay gap measures the difference between what male and female earn on average in the labor force. Some research found that the gender pay gap increased the prevalence of anxiety and depressions among women. Low income and weak social status have a serious impact on women's mental health. Moreover, the gender pay gap also affects the living standards of families and even has a great impact on the economy as a whole. Therefore, the study of gender pay gap is helpful to seek the way to narrow the gap. This will reduce the harm to women's mental health and help maintain the stable development of the entire economic systems. Secondly, we have conducted a few literature reviews for the study of this topic. The Workplace Gender Equality Agency described that the gender pay gap is mainly caused by a combination of social and economic factors. More specifically, women are vulnerable to discrimination and prejudice in employment and pay decisions. Based on gender discrimination and prejudice, employers believe that women are far less capable of working than men, and they also believe that women will miss work due to maternity issues. In addition, jobs in female-dominated industries are often less well paid. Furthermore, Barrett and Brown reports that quantifiable data such as educational attainment, work experience, and occupational isolation measures the relevance of gender pay gap. Part of the reasons for the narrowing of the gap can be attributed to the advancement of women in these areas. Moreover, they hold a similar point of views with the Workplace Gender Equality Agency that women are overrepresented in lower paid jobs. So even though women are increasing their representation in male-dominated higher paid jobs, there is still a significant gender pay gap. For the next part, let Sherry give you an introduction to data collection and pre-processing.
The data we use to analyze the gender pay gap is extracted from 2 resources, which are OECD and United States Census. The main data set we are focused on are the annual wage gap and the multi-level wage gap. Firstly, we are going to focus on the annual wage gap, and this dataset is from OECD and Census Bureau, which includes gender wage gap, fertility rate, labor participation rate, marriage rate, education attainment, and female annual income from the United States. The wage gap is the difference between the median earnings of men and women relative to the median earning of men among all full-time employers. Due to the lack of data on education attainment availability for the United States, the percent of women with a bachelor's degree or higher is used instead of the breakdown of educational attainment. Each variable we use to analyze is extracted separately from different databases. These data are from 50-year observations in total and have no missing value. The second dataset we are focused on are the multi-level wage gap. This dataset has been obtained from US Census, which includes age, income, gender, level of education, race, and so on. In the preprocessing step, the missing or the not available values are all replaced by the average. The variables will be converted to logarithmic scaled by convention. In the explanatory analysis part, we will further explore how these factors affect the difference in earning between male and female. And now, Xiangyu Chen will introduce the explanatory analysis of the data for you.
First, we will explore the overall wage trend from 1970 to 2019. As shown in this picture, even though there are some fluctuations, the general trend of log wage gap between male and female will to be smaller over time. However, men exhibit a higher median in log wage as compared to women based on the box plot. Secondly, we will explore the effect of age on log wage gap to more clearly distinguish the pattern. The continuous variable age is converted to 7 groups. Based on this picture, we can see that observations from 25 to 64 years old experience a huge drop in log wage gap over time, while observations above 64 years old maintain a horizontal level and experience a gentle increase in log wage gap in recent years. Lastly, we're gonna continue exploring the effect of education attainment on log wage gap. We can see this picture. It exhibits the number of men and women enrolled in each level of education and the log wage distribution over different education levels. After performing logarithmic transformations, the wage gap is similar among different education levels, and overall men have higher income than women.
In this experiment, it will build a time series model based on the observations from 1970 to 2015, then use the fitness model to predict the annual wage gap from 2016 to 2019, and evaluate model performance use the RMFC metric. The Arimat model is used to make sense of time series data and to focus future trends. The most important prerequisite of an Arimat model is that the time series data should be stationary. Look at figure 4, trend plot of the wage gap and other factors. It's noticed that almost all variables experiences either an increasing or decreasing trend over time. Let's look at table 1. It shows the model's performance. The RMS8 on the test set is 0.71, which is fairly good. As shown in figure 4, the red line represents the fittest variable of the trend set, which is from 1979 to 2015, and the blue line is refers to a model prediction on the test set from 2016 to 2019. By checking in Figure 6, the first and the last graph shows that the residuals appear to be white noise. Okay, this is part of the time series analysis. Let's Carrie Song introduce her part.
After discussing the effect of time on gender wage differentials in the United States, we will now discuss other factors such as allocational treatment, age, and race on gender wages differentials. In order to make the distribution and the logarithm of wages can be modeled by the linear combination of unknown parameters, we have chosen to use Poisson model. Here we can see the following equation. And let's see the results shown in the figure 7 and 8. For allocational attainment, we can see having a high school allocation increase the log wages by 3.57. Allocation to some college or associate degree increase the log wages by 3.56. Overall, the effect of allocation on wages become minimal after the high school degree. Now we talk about the age factor. 1 unit increase in age leads to 0.03 increase in the logarithm of wages in 1979, while in the 2090, it is close to 0. Thus, we have evidence to say that the decline in wages as people get older is relatively small as era progresses. In addition, when we compare the wages gap between the different races, we find that the difference in wage due to racial differences is gradually decreasing. And then, the difference in wages due to gender differences still exists. Holding all other variables constant, women earned 0.23 less than the men in 1979 and only 0.13 less in the 2019. This proves that the women's wages are still lower than the men's wages. Compare the gender gap prediction in 1979 and 2019. Figure 9 shows good thing to see that gender wage gap has decreased. And now, Ya-Qian Li will give the conclusion.
Okay, I believe you get a sense of the gender pay gap from our presentation. From a macro perspective, based on the time series analyzed on gender wage ratio gap from 1970 to 2015, we realized that though there were a few fractions during the observed period, the pay gap was consistently decreasing. From a micro perspective, it proves two specific years, 1979 and 2019, to quantitatively explore how education attainment, gender, and race affects the wage gap. There is a 50-year interval between 2 years and the wage gap is significantly different. Also, the pay gap still exists. It is smaller compared to 50 years ago. To completely understand how factors affect the gender wage gap is still complicated, since it can be also influenced by other social, political, and economic factors. There is still no indisputable model to perfectly represent and predict the wage gap. For further improvement of the prediction model, we would like to consider the impact of geographic trend variations over different areas on gender pay gap to identify the change of the wage difference on various areas. Hope you can try it. That's all for this presentation. Thank you for watching.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.